My guest today is Kathleen Barton. Kathleen works with career women who feel overwhelmed with their responsibilities, who want to be more productive and effective in their work, and still have a life outside of work. As a keynote speaker, workshop presenter, author, and life coach, Kathleen specializes in work-life issues, including life balance, stress, and time management. Kathleen is the author of Connecting with Success, Finding Your Purpose and Passion in Life, and Passport to Priorities. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I wanted to know, how did you gain interest in work-life balance? And just tell, for the people that don't know about you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I work with career women who feel overwhelmed with their responsibilities and want to be more productive and effective in their work and still have a life outside of work. And I do that through speaking, training, and coaching. And just on a personal note, I am married. I have two children who are now grown, ages 23 and 18. And now, as far as how I gained an interest in life balance, it was actually many, many years ago. My life was totally out of balance. Totally out of balance. At the time, I was married, I was working full-time at HP in the Silicon Valley, and I was going to graduate school to earn my MBA. I spent all my time working, studying, and going to school, and that was it. I didn't have time for anything else. I didn't have time for my husband, much less myself. And I tell you, it was affecting my marriage. My husband, he finally put his foot down. He said, "Kathleen, this is not my idea of a marriage. You are so busy, we never see each other. And something has got to change." And so that just hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized the insanity of it all. And that was the start of my life balance journey. So I made some changes in my life to bring better balance and fulfillment into my life. And so now I am really passionate about helping other women find balance in their life.
What would you say are the keys to balance?
Well, in my book, Passport to Priorities, I share 3 keys to balance. And the first is taking care of yourself. And I find in particular, women have a hard time with this because we are so focused on others, on taking care of our husbands, our children, or elderly parents, that we oftentimes put ourselves last. So we're last on the priority list. Another key is to focus on the important. And so if you don't really know what's important to you, if you don't know your values and your priorities, then you are going to be pulled in lots of different directions. And the third key is to be able to say no to the unimportant. And here again, this is where I think women have an especially hard time because we want to be liked. We are people pleasers and we want to be helpful. So it's hard for us to set those boundaries and to be able to say no.
How would I go about deciding, okay, which goes in what column? Should I write a list, or what's the best way to go about doing that?
In terms of prioritizing, well, we can take a look at that on 2 different levels. One is really truly understanding your values and priorities in life. And in my workshops and my coaching programs, I take my clients through an exercise where I have them, first of all, just brainstorm. What are the most important things to you in life? Maybe your faith, your family, your career, your friends, your health. And then once they've brainstormed, to then identify the top 5. And then from there to actually be able to prioritize. And that's where it's really difficult because they're all important, but some may be more important than others. So I actually take them through a little exercise where they imagine that they're in a lifeboat, rowing down the river of life with their 5 priorities on the raft. And as in life, sometimes there's some rough waters, and going down those rough waters and the rapids, then the raft hits a sharp rock and is punctured, gets a hole in it, and you're losing air. and you're not sure you're going to make it to your destination, so you have to unload, and so you need to pick one of those top 5 priorities. Which one is it that you are going to be able to unload? Okay, so which one can you live without? And so I continue on in that scenario to really get them to prioritize what are the most important things to me in my life. And you have to I put it in this life or death scenario because they're all so important. And then when it comes down to their top priority, it may be so important that they would be willing to die for that priority. So by going through that process, that gives people a really solid foundation in knowing their values and priorities and knowing what they're all about. And then when you reach those, you have those tough decisions, it makes it a little bit easier to make those tough decisions. So that's on a kind of a more macro level in terms of, really understanding your values and priorities. We could also talk on, a daily basis too on how you prioritize.
I love that idea. I've never thought about that. The idea of the life raft and what do you have to get rid of. So I love that. Genius. Okay, daily priorities. Tell me about that.
Prioritizing on a daily basis, it's first of all, I know that many of us have our daily to-do list. So we have things that we write down that we need to do, doing the laundry or, going to the grocery store, or at work, it's, writing this report or calling this client and so forth. But what is key is that that list is prioritized. That is essential that you prioritize it. Now, a lot of people use a prioritization scheme of A, B, and C. So A are the most important priorities, B are important, C might be the lesser important. But how do you define that? I think a common mistake people make is having too many A priorities. They think, well, they're all most important, and you have 10 A's on the list, and then that puts a lot of pressure on yourself. You don't want to do that to yourself. And so I define an A priority as those things that are both important and urgent. And there will be some negative consequence if you do not get it done today. So say, for example, your boss has asked for this report by 5 o'clock today because he needs to present it to your key client at an 8 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning. So if you do not get that report to your boss, there's going to be some negative consequence. And it may show up in your performance review too. So that's an A priority. So then you tackle the A priorities first, then move on to the B priorities, and then the C priorities. So think in terms of importance and urgency.
Many women believe they need to be superwoman. They have to do everything. They have to be everything to everybody. How does a woman avoid the superwoman syndrome?
Oh, yes. And that is so true. I mean, that, first of all, by realizing that you can't do it all. No, you cannot do it all. And that is a fallacy that some of us have been brought up with. Oh, that you can do it all, you can have it all, you can be superwoman, you can be super mom and super worker as well. But not without sacrifices, because it is a give and take. And so it's much better if you focus on doing a few things well, rather than trying to do it all and do everything. And the other thing to remember is that as superwomen, we not only want to do it all, but we want to do it all perfectly, as far as being the best wife and the best mother and best businesswoman. And we need to cut ourselves some slack. No one is perfect. No one is perfect. And so don't set yourself up for failure in setting yourself, having these unrealistic standards for yourself. That is just setting yourself up for failure. And realize that you are not perfect. So instead, go for good enough. And each woman needs to decide what good enough is for them. So let me give you an example of this. All right, this was many years ago after my first child was born. And I can remember when she was a toddler, Well, I'll just preface this by saying that I like a neat, clean, and tidy house. Okay, then having a toddler, she, I, I mean, there'd be toys strewn everywhere, and I would pretty much follow her around the house picking up toys. And then by the end of the day, I was exhausted. And I thought, well, this isn't working. I'm just going to go insane. And so I realized that I needed to reset my expectations. I needed to reset my standards. In this case, learning to live with a little clutter. So I figured if I could just contain that clutter to the family room, then I'd be doing fine and I could live with that.
That is so funny. I had a conversation with someone and they don't have kids yet. And their expectations of what their house is going to be like, I was like, okay, you'll see when you have kids. Because I'm like, unless you keep them outside, or
Yeah.
I'm like, you keep them in a little corner, but they can like really wreck a corner.
Yeah,
They can like go
doesn't work.
wild in a corner. So I'm like, okay, you will see when you have kids. Your kids really teach you to let go and like, okay, it's
Yes.
okay. Like they'll get to the point where I don't know if this is just me or just a lot of parents or every parent, but the stepping on the block or stepping on a toy in the middle of the night, and it's
Hmm.
like, you, yeah, eventually you're just like, okay, I'm used to it. It would just
That's
kick it out
right.
the way and keep going. They're kids, they're not going to be that way forever. You rather have them have fun, be able to express themselves than live in a little box, rather than
Hmm.
say, I had a great time with my mom. I enjoyed my mom, instead of saying, oh, the house was always so neat and clean. We didn't have any fun. We didn't get a chance to
Right.
do anything. We never got messy, but we had a good time. So, yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah, there
And,
you go.
and I've actually had to work on the perfectionism, so I understand that part when
Hmm.
it comes to my business. But I've learned, you know what? If you have to get the content out there, you have to get the information out there. Don't worry about it being perfect, because if you spend so much time trying to make it perfect, then nobody will ever see it because it will never be good enough. Nowadays, many professionals bring work home. In this age of email and cell phones, where everybody feels like they should be able to get in touch with you immediately, how do you set boundaries? And even setting boundaries with your boss, not just your clients.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it really means setting boundaries with ourselves, our boss, coworkers, clients, and so forth. And sometimes because we are so driven and goal oriented that we need to set boundaries on ourselves. So, for example, you could set a goal to, say, leave the office by 6 p.m. And what you'll find is that you actually may be more productive because you're working toward an end goal and you utilize your time more efficiently. Or you could set a goal to turn off your electronic devices by a certain time each evening. So that way you won't be interrupted and you won't be distracted by them. So you decide maybe it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, when you have some downtime, some time just with your family. Some people may need to set or reset expectations with their clients or their customers. I know of one woman that I worked with who is an insurance agent. And when she first started her business, she really wanted to prove herself, and she pretty much bent over backwards for her customers, and she was available pretty much 24/7, any time of the day or night. And then she found she didn't have a life outside of work. And so she decided she needed to change that for her own health. And so she reset her expectations with her customers and said that she was not available after hours unless it was an emergency situation. And so now Lilia has that time in the evening for just some downtime, rest, and relaxation. Um, and then I think of also Maria. Maria was another client that I worked with, and she is a director of a community college district. So she would regularly bring home work on the weekends and found that it was um, getting in the way of her family time. And so she decided that she was no longer going to bring work home on the weekends. She spent that time for family and recreation. And so now on Monday morning, she goes back to work and she's feeling refreshed and, ready to start her work.
Seems like it would be a little bit easier to talk to your clients and say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
these are my office hours, but how do you approach your boss? Because I've heard stories of women that even had to go pick up their kids from daycare and their boss is like, okay, well, I need you to stay later. How can
Mm-hmm.
you talk to your boss? Because I know
Mm-hmm.
some people may feel intimidated or, they're like, okay, I want to keep my job, but I want to let my boss know that these
Mm-hmm.
are the hours that I can work and I have other things to do after that. What should they
Mm-hmm.
do?
With your boss, a lot of it really depends upon the type of relationship that you have with your boss. And certainly some are more understanding and family friendly than others as well. So it kind of depends upon their attitude too. But what I would suggest is to make your needs known and make them clear. So if you need to leave at a certain time to pick up your kids from childcare, to let your boss know of that constraint, but at the same time, be flexible and be willing to give a little extra at other times. So maybe if your boss wants you to stay late one day and you're unable to because of family obligations, then offer maybe to come in a little early the next morning and complete the assignment that the boss wants you to do. So just being willing to be flexible and work with the boss, I think makes a really big difference.
That sounds like a great win-win. Instead
Hmm.
of just saying, I can't do it, you say, I can't do it today,
Right.
but I am willing to do it another time. So that sounds like
Yes.
a great alternative for somebody that's
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to talk to their boss. How can someone say no tactfully?
Well, that's a challenging one, and I think especially for women, we have a hard time saying no because we want to be liked, we want to be helpful, and so there are a couple approaches that I use. One is called the sandwich approach, and so that is where you start with a positive, you decline, and then you end on a positive note. So here's an example. Let's say that you're asked to participate on a task force, whether it's for work or a community organization. And so you might respond by saying, well, I'm really interested in that project and I'd like to help, but really my plate is full. Keep me in mind when another opportunity comes up. So it comes across sounding a lot more positive that way, but at the same time, you're declining. Now, the other approach is what I call the negotiated no, and that's where you negotiate with the other person, especially with regard to the scope or the deadline of the project. So you might say that I have a let's say I have a lot of work this week. Can this wait till next week? Or you might say, well, I can take on that project as long as I have help with it. So you're negotiating with the other. Now you notice in each of these cases, you aren't actually coming right out and saying no, but you are able to decline in a more positive way.
Those techniques sound like they would work good at home also, and not just at work. So even with your kids, not just your spouse, but with your kids. You know what? I'd like to, but I need help with that. If
There
you
you
help
go.
mommy, then I'll do it. What is the most important message that you want to get across regarding life balance?
Well, I would say that is to focus on your spiritual source, and that is where you get your sense of purpose and meaning in life. And so for me, that is my Lord God. And so I find that when I focus on Christ and follow His guidance and direction, then my life flows more smoothly and balance becomes easier. And when I'm faced with important decisions, I would ask, what would Jesus have me do? Now, I like to use the analogy of a pinwheel. So if you think of a pinwheel that you spin it around, and think of the pin as your source, so for me, that's the Lord. And your source pretty much holds things together. So when we get busy, then the Lord holds things together. Now, if there were no pin in the pinwheel, then we'd be flying off in lots of different directions and our life would be chaos. But with that focus on our source, then that gives us focus and that gives us more peace in our life as well, and guidance and direction. So again, that makes balance easier.
Our pastor did an in-depth study of the armor of God, and he talks about how praying the armor of God will make such a big difference in your life and your schedule, because part of it is praying about your schedule, and it'll help you know what should you be doing, not just what you think you should be doing, but it'll let you know, okay, this is the direction that I'm supposed to be going in, and I'm not supposed to be all over here. And it just helps you throughout your day have a calm, peaceful day, so by the end of the day you're not feeling like
Right.
So that does make a big difference. Now, do you have any upcoming projects?
Yes, I do. I have a coaching group coming up. It's for working women, and that's where there's a small group of about 6 to 8 women who meet via teleconference on a weekly basis and can share their issues related to work-life balance. So the overall goal is to make positive, sustained changes to bring more balance in your life. And so each week we focus on a different topic, whether it be identifying your priorities and staying focused on them, or simplifying your life, or setting boundaries and being able to say no. But then again, the nice thing about the group coaching is that you get support from the group, not only from the coach, but also from the group as well.
It makes a big difference when you have that circle of supporters and you have different perspectives that will, give you different point of views. It makes a big difference when you're trying to work out things in your life. So that is awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for taking the time to share your wisdom with us and help the Sane Mom audience with work-life balance. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Kathleen and her coaching services, including the special offer that she has just for the Sane Mom audience, visit thesanemom.com. Like this video? Then comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Want more tips and stories from moms like you? Visit thesanemom.com and sign up for email updates. Until next time.